and welcome to Coug Voice. This is a podcast by students for students.
And we are hoping that we'll be able to break down the craziness of the world around us and give you a simplified version of what's going on so you can keep up to date with current events.
Yeah.
And this week, we are tackling probably the craziest thing that's happened in 2021 so far, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, we're going to talk about impeachment, and not just the first impeachment of Donald Trump, but the second.
Yeah, so there's a lot for us to uncover. So, Mariah, do you want to start off by giving us the basics of what's happening?
Absolutely. So impeachment can be kind of confusing because there are actually two steps to impeachment. First, we have the actual impeachment, which goes to the House of Representatives. And basically, they vote on whether or not the president has committed crimes great enough to be impeached by the House. And if they say yes, which they have twice now for Donald Trump, it gets sent to the Senate. And the Senate holds a trial very similar to the trials that we picture in like modern day things. And they decide whether or not they will remove the president from office, or if they're not going to convict him, they can give like a guilty, not guilty verdict. And in order to get a guilty verdict, 2/3 of the Senate has to say yes and convict. So that's 67 people all have to agree. And that did not happen for Donald Trump. In his latest impeachment, he was charged with incitement of insurrection based on his involvement in the January 6th Capitol debacle, I guess I'll call it. And the argument was that his tweets actually were what helped encourage some of the awful things that we saw go down on that day. And then they also added in some little tidbits here and there about his refusal to accept election results. And they passed it in the House, no problem, no surprise there. And then it went to the Senate, where he was acquitted of this incitement of insurrection. And I believe it was a 57-43, so they were 10 votes shy. It's actually a closer margin, or the first time he was impeached, it was actually a closer margin than this time around. So he was not barred from getting office again. And you might be saying, Mariah, I'm confused. I thought we could only do this for people who actually were president, and Donald Trump was no longer president. So glad you asked. That's what we're going to talk about.
Exactly. And so what is going to happen if Trump does get convicted? Essentially, the main point of impeachment, which is what kind of Mariah touched upon a bit, is to remove a person from office, but it can also withstand them from holding office in the future, which only needs a simple majority vote to pass. And so if this actually happens, then Trump can theoretically challenge the Senate trial to get back into office or to re-involve himself in politics, which is what a lot of people don't want him to do. And just to kind of preface this whole thing, Mariah and I are going to be saying our own individual opinions at the end. And keep this in mind that we are still, at the end of the day, students. So please don't come for us.
Please don't come for us. When discussing this podcast, Anna actually expressed that she was afraid that a poli-sci major was going to come after her. And as a poli-sci major myself, yeah, I'm afraid of that.
Well, I'm a communications major, but I do love me some politics, being on the speech team. So let's continue with this wonderful discussion. And so there are actually a lot of implications that happen when you impeach a former official or just the president in itself. They can limit pensions, can limit travel, can limit security, Secret Service. There's a lot that goes into it. But specifically, what we're going to talk about later is what is going to lead for the future president for future impeachment trials and just presidency in general, since I feel like this impeachment and just Donald Trump's presidency as a whole is going to change everyone else's presidency.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt that, first of all, even with this whole thing, I think it's quite interesting that we will be feeling the repercussions of the Trump presidency for years decades. I mean, we quite literally, I don't know if you were an AP student in high school, but those LEQs, my goodness, our kids are going to be writing the LEQs on this time. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Imagine his Twitter feed just popped up on there.
Yes,
And
exactly.
like, oh, mom, like, what happened? And we're like, oh, let me tell you what happened.
And see, that's the thing, is like, we're not even touching on the Twitter aspect of this, of everything that happened with the Capitol. This is really just on the impeachment. But there's so much we could go into that happened in those last chunks of January, those last 3 weeks of his presidency, really. And I think that's what people are really stuck on, is like, okay, we had so much happen right there at the tail end of his presidency. What are we going to do about it? And that's the whole impeachment thing, is like, can something be done if a president screws up, which, let's be honest, Donald Trump didn't do his best here. Can something be done if it's in the last 3 weeks of his presidency?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can jump right into the pro-impeachment side of this. We've broken it up. I'm going to go over pro-impeachment. Anna's going to go over anti-impeachment, and then we will give you our personal opinions at the end of that. I have some notes here because I had to do a lot of research, guys. This is really complicated. I'm an RA. I spent the full 3 hours that I was on desk duty at Yetter reading a law review from Texas on impeachment and late impeachment, and it was great. I loved it. But everyone who was there trying to get stuff from the C-store was like, hello. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was reading about English impeachment. I'll be right there. So I had to, like, out of the corner of my eye, watch and see if somebody wanted ice cream. But here's what I've discovered. No surprise here. This is a highly debated question. Everyone is confused because the founding fathers didn't say anything. They just kind of were like, impeachment. There it is. And everyone was like, but, and there we have no answers because we can't bring George Washington back to life, can't bring Thomas Jefferson back to life. So this is a very, very hot topic in law, now more than ever. But some interesting things to note. There have been dozens of legal scholars that signed this like petition thing saying that late impeachment should be allowed, that we should be allowed to impeach someone after they have left office. And a huge part of that is because of what impeachment in the United States is based off of. So quick history lesson. We took most everything in our government from the English, and impeachment was one of those things. Actually, in England, you could impeach private citizens, which is wild, and a punishment for impeachment used to be death.
Oh, lovely.
The English. So, and that was just because the court system, the civil court system in England was not doing well. And so sometimes the House of Commons, the House of Lords had to take matters into their own hands, even if it wasn't an official. And the American founding fathers were not a fan. So they actually specifically barred that from being able to happen. They went out of their way to say, hey, we can't impeach private citizens. And so thus the question arises, is Donald Trump a private citizen or is he still an official? And that is the question that we have. Historically, once you are an official of a federal office, you kind of are always there. And you can, it's like once a president, always a president. Just because George W. Bush is no longer sitting in the Oval Office doesn't mean he doesn't have the Secret Service detail, all that kind of stuff. And so historically, we do continue to recognize presidents as having sort of federal authority, even after they're no longer active in office. And because of that, there's this argument that, yeah, we should be able to try President Trump for the things that he did, even though he left office. And a big part of this is, what happens if someone, doesn't even have to be a president, it could be a Secretary of State, commits something grievous like working with terrorists or something like that. And then they find out that the Senate knows about it and they resign right before. And then there's nothing we can do about it because they're no longer officials. So the argument here is we have to be able to try former officials in order to hold them accountable, or they can just get out of it without any consequences after they resign. And honestly, in all the research I did, I don't know if you found this to be the same, but this whole trial impeachment had very little to do with did Donald Trump actually do anything, and a lot more to do with can we do anything about it? Is impeachment even something that we can do?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And throughout my research in the anti-impeachment, I found more so your aspect of it, but also kind of more the division of the parties in themselves. It's not necessarily just about Trump or what Trump did. That's kind of like the caveat of everything. It's like, okay, there is so much hatred for the Republican Party, for the Democrat Party, from both sides, that it's kind of outstanding everything else. And so are you done with your pro impeachment or?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add on to this is Mitch McConnell, whole thing wraps up, Trump's acquitted. Mitch McConnell gets on the Senate floor and he gives this really good speech. I went and read the transcript. If you're a political nerd like me, I would highly recommend it. But basically in it, and I'm going to read a quote off my phone. He says, January 6th was a disgrace. Fellow Americans beat and bloodied our own police. They stormed the Senate floor. They tried to hunt down the Speaker of the House. They built gallows and chanted about murdering the Vice President. They did this because they had been fed wild falsehood by the most powerful man on earth because he was angry he'd lost an election. And I think hearing that from Mitch McConnell, who's our minority leader in the Senate, he's, kind of the person that people recognize when they think of the Republican Party. He's been the majority leader in the Senate, all those kinds of things. He seems to very explicitly be saying, like, look, Trump messed up. And then he goes on later in his speech to say, I didn't vote against this because I don't think Trump messed up. I voted against this because I don't think we can impeach a former president. And that's really interesting to me because we're just on this legality side of it. And I wonder, are we getting too caught up in that and not actually dealing with like a serious crime that probably should be addressed?
Okay, that's really good, Mariah. And I think on the opposite side of things, and again, I would like to point out that we all have such differences of opinions, even the fact that we go to a Christian school in smack right in middle Colorado. Like there are people at our school that are going to have difference of opinions, and that is great. That's amazing. Our podcast is just going to highlight our own opinions to kind of spark the conversation on campus rather than just with a few people. So don't hate on CCU for this. These are our own opinions. Just pointing that out there. And so for my side on the anti-impeachment aspect, through looking at the research online, I found that a lot of people are against impeachment because one, it can detract from Biden's presidency in his first few days in office, considering that he's still very, very new to the presidency, but Trump's impeachment is also kind of taking a hold off of everything and still in the news media. And when it's a time for our country to come together and unite, since again, there is so much division across our country that even CCU even acknowledged in President Sweeting's, it was the email that he sent out, the statement. And so, we all understand that this is happening in our world. We all understand that obviously there's a lot of problems happening right now, and we are facing it head on. And another aspect is cancel culture. We've seen it all over social media, all over anywhere you go. There's some person being canceled for some reasons that are quite stupid. I'll just come out and say it. And then other things, they are quite justified. But it comes to the point where we raise the question, are we as a society becoming too sensitive and conforming to society's ideals rather than kind of traditional beliefs, and stemming away from Christian beliefs that we know that we are Christians, we believe in God, other people don't, and we can acknowledge that fact. And it's kind of like this weird little ongoing debate, ongoing struggle, ongoing fight that we're dealing with right now. And then also, a lot of people are saying that it's actually Trump supporters who led the DC riots. He didn't, in fact, insinuate anything or ask them to go out and riot into the Capitol. And he stated apparently in a tweet on January 6th to tell them to go straight home. Now, obviously, there's a lot that went into this. There were a lot of tweets that went on Twitter that entire day. And so a lot of people are very confused as to what to do. It's become kind of like a moral dilemma as to what are we supposed to do. And it was like we in our world being like, oh my gosh, like what's happening now? Like our own TV personal soap opera
Right.
coming with our very own eyes. And so lastly is the future president question. What's going to happen next? There was actually a principal president that was stuck in the 1876 impeachment of the Secretary of War, William Belknap. And apparently he received a lot of allegations that he had payments in return for appointing an individual to maintain a post in Indian Territory. And this reached a whole like impeachment investigation to happen. And then the committee that provided that evidence to the House, it ended up aware that he actually resigned just hours, regardless of him being impeached.
Yeah.
And so that kind of story has been coming back up into the news, being like, okay, this happened. Is this going to be the same story? What's going to happen? And obviously, our society has shifted tremendously since 1876, yes. And so Chuck Schumer, who's a Democrat from New York.
I was like, Chuck Schumer's a Republican? That one's new.
But we need to set a precedent that the severest offense ever committed by a president will be met by the severest remedy provided by the Constitution, impeachment and conviction by this chamber, as well as disembarment from future office. And so, as we see here, there are so many different beliefs, questions, and I feel like no one really knows the true story except those who are actually in politics. But this is what's so great about this. We could swap ideas, swap opinions, our own research rather than kind of seeing what the oh so very biased media is talking about and form our own opinions, so that we can grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's important to note here as well is we both did extensive research, as we mentioned. Our sources for everything that we're talking about will be included in this. Please go fact check us. We're not just gonna randomly, throw stuff out there. We do have research. You are more than welcome to sit through and read the Texas Law Review that I read. Please do. Please go enjoy, and also just any other articles that we both consulted at any point. Yeah, I think it's interesting. So in your research against like anti-impeachment, when they're talking about like, okay, these are Trump supporters, are they then pushing that there should be some sort of case in like civil court, or are they just kind of like meh?
Yeah, so a lot of people are saying that it's the Trump supporters that should be getting convicted, which I definitely heard about this, that a few of the rioters actually did, the police did end up getting them.
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong.
Arresting them. They
Yes,
were arrested.
That's the word I'm looking for. They arrested them. And there were so many theories about it too. Oh my gosh. Whether it's BLM, whether it's this or that, and again, it's the two parties going at each other, Mariah.
So fun.
I was just kind of like shocked. And when I was actually doing the research, something that I found really interesting was this was how my research went, guys. Reasons for why Trump should not be impeached on Google. It was all like opinion editorials on like, oh, why Trump shouldn't be impeached, but why he should be convicted, or like this. There was nothing in terms of why he should actually not get impeached because he is innocent.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is like no one's really arguing for his innocence
except him.
Except you. Well, we knew that, and no one's surprised. Well, and I think that's like huge is I was expecting to see, because I was like Googling also the anti-impeachment side just to like figure out what I needed to look at from the impeachment side. No one's arguing for his innocence. Everyone's like, no, he messed up. It's just, where are we going to convict him?
Yeah. And the saying innocent until proven guilty is because has he fully been proven guilty in a court of law, like officially?
Well, and that's the thing, from a law aspect, you think you're going to find an unbiased jury? Good luck. Good luck finding an unbiased jury to try Donald Trump, even if we go to the, the civil courts. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, yes. So there's a lot to unpack here. Yes. A lot. And, Mariah and I, there's so much that we could go into. This podcast, honestly, it could last for hours. It could.
Oh,
we could go
easy.
But when we actually get down to the nitty-gritty aspects of it, the most we can do is to kind of step back and say, okay, these are the facts. This is what we've researched so far. We can definitely come back to this if you guys want. We have a list of things we want to talk about, but feel free to comment. Yeah. But there's just so much that has gone into it, and so much there's still yet to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. I think that we will see this continue to be a topic of conversation for a very long time, because this is not the last time that something crazy is going to happen in the last couple weeks of a presidency. So even if it doesn't come up again during the Biden administration or whatever, which I expect it will. I expect it will rear its ugly head again, but it'll come back at some point. This will always be something that is debated in law, because it has been for so many years and it will continue to be. But I have a big question. What do you think? To impeach or not to impeach?
Oh, you see, I don't think Trump should be impeached. I think I don't want to say logical. I think just my own point of view, since me and you, Mariah, we've grown up very differently. I'm still here in San Diego. I come from immigrant parents I was born in Romania. And so like we have just very different childhoods, and in a further podcast, that'll be great to touch on, kind of see like how we've grown up and differences, and it'll be really interesting. But essentially, I think that it will set a very dangerous precedent for future presidencies, and it will just uphold and divide the country so much more than we are right now. And maybe I'm biased looking at it from a Christian standpoint, but I do believe that we have a duty first and foremost to God, and we have to look to kind of find and try and make sense of whatever piece is left. And I don't think that dealing with the problems in terms of one party is better than the other is going to solve anything. It hasn't yet, as we have seen the past 2 years with COVID, with BLM, with Antifa, like all these different aspects that have gone into it. And I think the problem is more so between the two deciding sides of government and the hatred that is happening all around us in the world. Not saying that Trump should be impeached currently. But
so I think it's really interesting. We divided this up to talk about it, and then we both ended up agreeing with the things that we researched. But I think that he should have been barred from ever having federal office again. So it's this whole idea of obviously they can't remove him from an office he doesn't have anymore, like he's not the president. But I just think watching it all go down, like, I remember sitting in front of the TV as it was happening, having Twitter open, being like, he did not just say that. Like, those kind of reactions, and just the whole fiasco around the election, and, the claims of fraud that went to court and were then thrown out, and just everything that was. I was just really disappointed in general, in the way that this man who held the highest office in our country conducted himself. I thought it was appalling, in all honesty. And I think I felt that way for the majority of his presidency. I just was tired of it. And I'm not saying that's the only reason to impeach him. That's not a good enough reason to impeach him. But just like his attacks on the vice president and things like that. I agree with all the people. I don't think he was innocent. And I think that's a pretty, like we talked about, pretty common belief of like, he was not innocent in this situation. I also think he should be impeached because I'm afraid of the precedent that it sets, which I think is interesting that like you think one thing and like it just shows how divided this is, but I'm afraid of, people are calling it the January exception. This whole idea that a president could do something crazy, like this was not okay. If this had happened at any other point in Donald Trump's presidency, I'm pretty sure that he would have been impeached and removed from office. Because of the statements that Republicans have said about like, not believing that he was innocent, only voting against impeachment because of them not believing it was constitutional, things like that. I really think that if at any other point in his presidency this had happened, he would have been removed. And I think because of that, he should not be allowed to have federal office. I think it's kind of a loophole that's really scary, that it's a removable crime, it's an impeachable crime, yet he can run for president in 2024 if he wants to. But like, I'm not saying he'd win, I don't know, but like he could if he wanted to, and I just am uncomfortable that that's still an option. So I think he should have been convicted and barred from federal office, but we'll see what happens. I think we're still watching this all pan out. I think they definitely could take him to civil court. I think they might.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's super interesting that we have pretty much the same beliefs that what happened was not okay by any means. How everything got conducted was not okay at all, and it definitely did not correspond to the values of our country. It didn't. And I think something else is that while I was researching, I saw so many things that people were scared that he's going to run for office again, or he's going to come back into the political world sphere that we're in again. And there are talks about him starting his own party.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Majority of it's going to be obviously mostly Republican run, but there was a poll that was taken at, I should have put this into my research because I don't have the statistic for it again, but it was like over, I think 70% of people would jump into the party.
Oh
and
my God.
I think it's really interesting to kind of put into perspective when you look at things, because everyone has such different beliefs about it, and it's just so cool to, like, it's obviously really scary, like just putting it out there, like it's scary that everyone has such different beliefs, and some people have more extremist beliefs than others. But seeing where everyone kind of lays their ground on everything is interesting. And
well, if I can pop off as a poli-sci major for a brief moment about Donald Trump starting his own party, because our big question at the end of this is, do we think we'll see Donald Trump ever again in politics? Here's my thing. Okay, so Teddy Roosevelt. We're gonna go back to Teddy. Good old Teddy. National Parks. Thank you, Teddy. He ran Bull Moose Party, third party, lost, and then jumped on with one of our main parties, ran, won. And we saw this again actually with like George H. Bush, so George Bush Sr. Many people credit the reason that he lost his second term was because a strong third party candidate showed up and pulled some of the Republican votes. So I will be super interested to see, because I think it actually would be in the Democrats' favor to say, oh yeah, please run again, Donald Trump, because I don't think he has enough power without the Republican Party to win on his own, but he can pull a crap ton of votes to his side and keep any other Republican candidate from winning the presidency against Joe Biden come in 2024. So it'll be really interesting to see if he does choose to do that, because we've never had a third party candidate win, ever.
Well, or like putting that out there, because I'm not as educated enough in the election process to speak on it, so I'm not even going to try. But
Yeah.
I think it is going to be really interesting to see
Yeah.
how it pans out in future elections, and even see how Biden's presidency is going to work out, whether you're Republican or Democrat. I don't really care what side you're on, to be honest, as long as you have respect and we move on. Not necessarily move on, but kind of like try and do the
Unity.
best for our country and have some form of unity, because that's what
Yeah.
this country needs.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. But big question, is Mr. Donald Trump going to stay in Florida playing golf? Do we really think that's going to happen?
I don't think he's going to make a comeback. I definitely think he's going to make a comeback.
I don't even think this is a question. I have a hard time seeing this man who, just like the way he conducted himself, who he is, his personality, which is a huge part of the reason why people vote for him and love him. I have a really hard time seeing him withdraw from American politics. I just don't think that's going to happen.
No, look at us being like talk show hosts.
He's just too Trump.
Yeah, that nice.
Trump should be a new adjective. They just like, there's no other word for it. He just is who he is, and there's no way he's gonna stay in the background.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, and even with our podcast, we'll see if we can have some sort of like little chat box thing for other CCU students to put their own comments. Be nice.
That scares me. Wait, that scares me.
Me too. But I'm kind of like, I wonder. I definitely know some people that would potentially comment. Nothing bad, just very like.
No. I know full well I'm gonna get just attacked. I was the one who said he should be impeached. I know they're coming for me. I know it. I'm a poli-sci major. I know it. I mean, Jordan Jansen, head of Students for Trump. Hello, how are you? Hopefully you're listening. Please don't come for me. We're friends.
It's like just putting it like I personally I did vote for Trump. And yeah, it's a wild time. How beliefs and our thought processes change as time goes on. So we'll see how everything pans out.
But this is episode 1 of hopefully quite a few.
Yes.
We're doing our best here. We're new to this. We had no idea how to start this. Basically, what we're doing is just recording a conversation and hoping that it goes well.
And hopefully that you guys find it amusing.
Yes.
We want to do more. We have a 1-year anniversary of COVID podcast.
That's our next one, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm actually really excited about it. So,
yes, we're throwing a birthday party for COVID. Yes. Maybe we'll wear birthday hats and make it a whole thing, but we are going to be not really celebrating, but more like memorializing the year, what actually has changed in 2020, how vaccines are going, is it going to go back anytime soon, and maybe sharing our personal stories of the day we got sent home, what we remember from that day.
Some good old stories for you, Mariah, don't you?
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to hear them. But I think that's all we got on impeachment.
Yeah. I hope you like it, find it amusing. Hope you find us amusing, because I think we're pretty dang funny. But
yes, we are excited to do this, and we will see you guys next week. Yeah. Right? Next week. Should we commit to that? Next time. We'll see you guys next time.